Hello and welcome to Let's Talk SEO. So I found Google's patent for Google SGE, or Search Generative Experience, their experimental search engine that uses AI generated results. And for anyone who's been watching this channel for any length of time, they know that I mainly talk about SEO. And this is going to be a big part of SEO, and especially Google SEO and Bing SEO moving forward. And so anything we can learn from Google's patents is going to be useful for if you're trying to rank a website. Now, the patent I found is Generative Summaries for search results, and it was filed on March 20th. This was a few weeks before the first announcement and the beta release of SGE. Currently, there are no other patents that at least I'm aware of. Let me know if you are aware of other patents that mention generative AI techniques and search. And I might make a video about them, but I did a bit searching and I couldn't find them. So this is the only one that I could find. There might be other patents, and this on this topic, but they're still pending. But I think this document that I have, and the link to this document is in the description if you want to read through pretty dense technical stuff. But in this video, I've gone ahead and broken down SGE so that you understand how it works and how it works in terms of search, and how it works in terms of how it produces its results, so that you can come up with an SEO strategy, like I'm trying to come up with an SEO strategy that leverages the power of SGE in my advantage. Now, a lot of SEOs have been saying that SGE will mean that they get a lot less traffic, and this was something I thought as well. But I don't think this is going to be the case. I think this is going to change the way we do SEO from what we usually think or people searching for, to what we now need to think about in terms of what SGE is looking for. And so both for users and for SGE. And so as you'll see in this document that I'll talk about, and I go into how the SGE works, you will see that moving forward, if this becomes a big part of search, or at least a major part of search, we might have to use a different strategy. And that's something I'm working on. So the patent mainly describes the selective use of the language model, LLM, large language model, to generate natural language summaries in response to a user query, matching what we see and know about SGE today. So this is so there are a few key steps that SGE follows, and I'll start with what happens when someone submits a query to Google. And according to this, a user submits what's called a job. So in this, the user query is labeled as a job. So it's called a user job or jobs. So a user submits a job to SGE, and each job has a specific requirements, and like the type and the amount of resources needed, and its priority level. So for instance, if you type in dog training, SGE extrapolates from that, determines how many resources need to be allocated to produce the results for dog training for the user. The next step is, as I said, resource evaluation. So the SGE evaluates the available resources across Google's the vast computing resources, and it assumes the requirements of the submitted job against the current resources available. And so what this means is, even though SGE is generating results, as we will see, it's also a big part of resource management for Google. And so one of the reasons why Google is deploying this is so that there is more efficient use of its computing resources, because we also need to think that computing resources are finite, and they also cost Google a lot of money. Once those resources have been allocated, the next step is scheduling. And so based on its evaluation, SGE schedules the job. High priority jobs might get scheduled before low priority jobs. Now, how Google sets this priority goes more into the technical depth. How Google sets this priority is mainly not talked about in this document. I would imagine it's based on factors that's not really going to affect SEO, but it's more on the back-end technical aspect of the search engine. So based on its evaluation, SGE will schedule the job or schedule the results that need to be delivered, and high priority jobs will be scheduled before low priority ones. It decides the best time and the best place, which servers for the job run optimizing for factors such as resource utilization and job urgency. And what this means is that, for instance, I'm in Dubai right now, so if I search for dog training, SGE extrapolates, determines where I'm located, and then if they have computing resources in Dubai or near Dubai, those computing resources are allocated towards answering my query, which helps to speed up the overall process and the overall resource allocation system. Something which tells us that Google is struggling to manage its resources. Okay, so once that's scheduled, then you have resource allocation. So once the scheduled SGE allocates the necessary resources for the job, the allocation is, just as I mentioned, it is dynamic. So SGE might relocate resources as the situation changes. For higher priority jobs, also, as I mentioned, that so depending on where Google has the most resources and depending on the priority of the job, Google will go ahead and start determining that. And this usually takes a few seconds because it uses AI. So the task execution and monitoring is the next step. So this is step number 5. So the job is executed as a series of tasks. So SGE monitors the process of these tasks, ensuring that they are completed successfully. If the task doesn't complete, SGE can reschedule and reallocate more resources to do it. And so what this tells us is sometimes these jobs or tasks may fail. And when that usually happens, SGE is now responsible for reissuing the query or reissuing the job and resource allocation so that the query could be answered. And usually this will take milliseconds to happen. So the user might not even notice if there's a drop in speed in delivering the search results. Final part of this is the adaptation and optimization. So SGE continuously adapts to the changing conditions in the system. For example, if a server becomes overloaded, can move tasks to a less busy server. Again, something I talked about. Optimizes for overall efficiency, aiming to get the most out of Google's computing resources. Again, this is something that we talked about. I talked about in the previous videos. Google is having a problem managing its resources. So there's a lot to unpack here. And if you look at the diagram that I have, that shows how this works. This pretty much lays it out. So the user enters a query, it goes to the search engine, and then from the search engine passes it on to SGE. SGE that allocates resources, which is the database, which is the computing resources, the CPU power, whatever that may be. It then pulls information from the database. Then that data is then churned into possible results, and it's then delivered to the user. All of this takes maybe a fraction of a second, maybe even less. But there is a little more to this. So there are a few more things that need to be unpacked here. So when it's selecting a set of documents, which is SDRs, it's labeled SDRs, so it's search result documents that are responsive to the query and related to the search query. So generating corresponding content snippets for each SRD. This can include text, images, video, and all other types of content. So processing the SRD content snippets using LLM to generate output and actual summarization prompt can also be included, which Google now does or SGE does already, but it's in the patent. And so generating a natural language summary using LLM output, this leverages the robustness of LLM and also constraining it to the SRD content. And so what this means is Google finds that a lot of the results are more broad and they don't just directly answer the question. SGE can kick in and directly answer the question that the user asks. So if I ask what's the best way to train my dog, what is the best way to train my dog, and Google can't find a website that directly answers this question, SGE will answer the question in maybe like 50 words. They'll provide links to additional resources that people can click on and go and read on those websites. So this is something more of a backup, as it's mentioned in the patent. So AI is meant, or SGE is meant to kick in more as a backup when results cannot be found that directly answers the user's query. And the other thing that's really interesting about this patent, and if you go through it, you'll find that it's not just one LLM or one AI model that's part of SGE. There are a few different elements. For instance, there is a generative model that creates the AI snippets, or these snippets for search results. There's another AI model that allocates resources, and then there's another AI model goes through the database of queries or search or index pages to produce the results. And so it's not just one AI model. Now, Google doesn't say in the patent how many LLM AI models are being used, but it does hint at the fact that there are multiple LLM models. Then there are also models that use text to image to generate results. So how does Google choose what model to use? So it really depends on processing of the query with the classifier to predict the best model. And so depending on the query, Google automatically chooses what model to use, detecting certain terms in a query to indicate suitable models. So considering search result types content to determine appropriate models. The trade-offs here is, I would say, accuracy, because the resource allocation is not easy, and trusting AI to do AI resource allocation does make things a lot more efficient, but it also means that there might be problems, and so which is why some people have been reporting that there is a slowdown in Google search results, especially after SGE was introduced. So the system may prefer to use smaller LLMs unless a larger one will offer a better response to the query. So if multiple LLMs are selected, for instance, for argument's sake, so there can be multiple responses that need to be rendered by another set of different LLMs. Probably mean that the search query and the answers delivered go through multiple LLMs before users actually see the answers or get the answers that they're looking for. And then there's another part to this, which is verifying information with links to sources. So most people that do SEO know that we need to add links to resources, and we need to cite resources, and it's a big part of generating content that's can be trusted. So the final piece of the puzzle is, how does SGE know what websites or what references are worth showing in its search results or its results? And the answer to that is not in the patent. So I went to the whole patent and I couldn't find any references to how Google or how SGE figures out exactly what references are worth showing and what references are worth scraping from or scraping the results from and showing in SGE. And after a bit of research, I figured out that Google was in fact relying on its core algorithm, which determines authority. And so if you're an authority organically, and your website is authoritative organically, Google sees it as being an authority, and you've allowed Google SGE or BARD to crawl your website, which Google says you should, if you want your website to be indexed. And moving forward, I think this is going to be mandatory if you want your website to be indexed. Organic Google sees you as an authority. SGE will also see you as an authority, and your links will show up at the bottom of SGE's results. And so the way you can test this is just search using keywords, using multiple keywords, using SGE, and then using organic Google to see what websites are ranking in the top 5 or 6, because those are websites that Google sees as being authority. The exception here are product-related searches. And this is where things are a little muddy, because for the most part, if you do a product-related search, Google will show you organic results, and SGE will make a few random recommendations. Now, I say random, but in computer science, there is no such thing as random. Those random recommendations are mainly not defined by Google, so it's not in the algorithm. I don't know how Google is pulling this up. I'm still doing the research, I'm still looking into this, but a lot of the recommendations are for products from Amazon. And so since Google sees Amazon as being a big player in the e-commerce space, that is where SGE is pulling its results from when it provides product recommendations. And so that is probably one aspect that is worth looking into, is if you are a large e-commerce web store in a country or a region, you have that authority, that e-commerce authority, then there's higher probability that Google will show products from your website and recommend products from your website as compared to a smaller, lesser known website. Now, there may be a lot more to this, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. This is what I've been able to pull out from the patent. So let me know in the comments below what you think SGE does, and whether SGE is going to be big moving forward. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.